Welcome to the Daily Mail. I'm Charlie Spearing, senior political reporter. I'm joined here today by comedian and podcast legend Adam Carolla, who just performed at the Trump Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. last weekend. Adam, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but President Donald Trump announced his decision to close the place for renovations right after you performed. What went down over there? Did you break something?
I rocked it off its foundation, bro. It's seismically unstable right now. It's been cordoned off. Once I was done rocking that second show, basically had to shut the whole place down. So that's what happens. I blow into town. I rock these things off their foundation, and they need heavy repairs, and they're not suitable for inhabitants anymore. So it's going to be a couple of years until they can get that place back on there. Now, look, if a lesser comedian obviously passed through there, we wouldn't have a situation. If it was a Tim Allen or Rob Schneider type situation over there, we'd be fine. But I came in, I rocked so hard that Trump actually had to actually put red tape around the place.
Well, it was good to see you perform. We've experienced this for a while, where you have celebrities protesting, pulling out, boycotting the president, the Kennedy Center. And obviously, it's kind of part of the culture right now. We saw Bad Bunny at the Grammys make a big ice out protest. And of course, organizers prior to this had chosen to do the Super Bowl halftime show this weekend. What can we expect from Bad Bunny, do you think, at the Super Bowl?
Um, I don't know. I mean, a guy in a dress singing in Spanish, some crappy reggaeton music I hate, and basically pissing off a bunch of people who'd rather hear Ted Nugent. And I guess the NFL have figured out that their fans are their fans, and the old fans aren't going anywhere, and we need to reach out to new fans. And the old fans are going to be in place, and then we'll go this international crowd. But I don't know, you know what I mean? I mean, I suppose, Bud Light thought they had their fans and they weren't going anywhere, and Cracker Barrel thought they had their fans and they weren't going anywhere. And I think it's happened a time or two where companies and entities figured they had their fans locked in. Let's go with other fans. So it'd be basically like me going, well, I do a podcast every day. I do pretty well. I got my fans locked in. Now I'm going to start doing my podcast in Spanish and get some new fans. Except for I think a lot of my old fans would drop off.
And we saw Roger Goodell, making kind of a subtle remark, saying he's confident that, Bad Bunny understands that the Super Bowl exists to unite people and bring people together. But at the same time, you don't really necessarily bring political stars like Bad Bunny or, Green Day is doing the opening show. They have a long history of political protest. I
It's
think
such, yeah.
maybe this Super Bowl might be a little more political than they expected.
It's such a weird thing, and I never thought. Well, okay, a couple thoughts. First off, how much money? Forget about the prop bets. Here's my prop bet. Roger Goodell's never heard of Bad Bunny before his exploratory committee brought it to him 4 months ago, right? There's no
Right.
possible way. When the first, the 24-year-old who's in charge of looking at, seeing if they could get Beyonce out, when she said Bad Bunny, there's no way Roger Goodell knew what that was.
Yeah, I
So
don't
that's
see any fist pumping or hell yeahs
no,
in that meeting.
I don't. I mean, no recognition. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's number one. Number two, it is a weird thing that the NFL is very, Dodge Ram pickup trucks and dudes, you know, colliding with one another, and it's very male centric, and it's also very American, and it's also it's a meritocracy, and it's like dudes like football. And yet the halftime show rolls around and we make it all for women or Puerto Rican women or the trans community or something. And what I'm saying is the left never does that. Like the left never says, "Oh, we do this thing that's, inherently, like they'll have their events, and their events will be like, award shows and Screen Actors Guild awards and whatever little indie thing they'll do, and Sundance or whatever, but they'll never have Foghat and Ted Nugent play it. Like they know like they know who their audience is, and they would
Right.
never cross, and they would go. It would piss people off. It would if uh, Elton John won't go over well at Sturgis is like what I would say. Even though I swear to God he may have played Sturgis, I got to look into that. But the point is I don't get why the right always has to do that. Like you're basically the right. Like football is sort of Republican and the fans love Trump and it's like F Joe Biden and stuff. Why not just get some bands that they would like? That your crowd that would not piss off your crowd.
Right. And in the sort of in the Biden area, you're a comedian, you're on the road, you're in Florida this weekend, you're coming up in Dallas later this month. And in the Biden era, there was like a lot of jokes to be made, real concerns about free speech, fighting cancel culture, even jokes about the president himself. What's the comedy scene like in 2026? The left likes to talk a lot about how we're in dark times in Trump's second term, but what are you sensing out there in the comedy world?
The left, I think many on the left are claim it's sort of too scary to joke about these times. And if you think about it, I can joke all I want because I don't think we're in scary times. But if you thought Hitler was on the rise and the Gestapo was out in the streets rounding up innocent people and disappearing them, then you really couldn't do a lot of joking. Like, I don't know what the comedians were talking about in Germany in 1940 and 1941. Uh, but I don't bet they were doing a lot of comedy back then because things were real. And so if you don't believe any of this stuff, then I can say whatever I want. I don't care. If you do believe it, then it's going to be crippling to you. And then there's the group that says it but doesn't believe it. And that's all the politicians on the left and most comedians over the age of 31.
And some of the comedian podcasters who weren't necessarily, big time conservatives or officially MAGA, in the last election, they kind of gave Trump a shot. You had, podcasters like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz, and now they're a little bit torn up about his deportation policies, almost signaling a split with the president on some of these issues. And what's your take on that? Is Trump going too far on the issue of immigration or some of his other issues, operations in foreign countries and stuff like that? Do you think he has a real problem with that crowd?
I think that if you said to your wife, listen, I'm going to do a new policy, and my policy is I'm not going to sleep with the front door wide open. I'm going to lock the front door every night I go to bed, and I'm going to deport any spiders or cockroaches that are inside this house to outside the house. And she threw a fit and just started going nuts and crying and screaming. And you went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just want, I think the front door should be locked. And she said, no, no, no. Eventually, the kids would come into the room and go, Dad, just open the door. We're trying to sleep. I don't want to hear this anymore. You've gone too far. You just do it. Just do it because they're so loud and they're
Hmm.
so out of control that eventually the other people in the house just want to get some sleep, right? And then you go, hey, listen, part of my marriage vows was I was going to shut the front door and lock it. And I promised that. And that's what I ran on. And they go, I don't care anymore. I don't want to hear mom screaming and crying anymore. Just leave the door open and go to bed. So that's essentially where we're running right now. I don't think anybody I know, and that would include Joe Rogan and any of these podcasters, has a problem with deportations and ICE in red states. If they're in red states and the government and the police force and whomever is assisting with them, and they're just going about their business and doing their jobs and going after either criminals or illegals, just people are here illegally, but hopefully criminals first, and deporting them, it doesn't make the news. Nobody gets shot, and we never hear a word about it. And I don't think those guys are reacting to that. I don't know anyone's reacting to it. I never hear I don't hear any news about it. But then you turn on the news and somebody got shot and somebody else got shot and there's people fighting in the street. And then the folks you speak about on the right and on the left go, isn't enough enough? Well, it's because you've got a bunch of crazy yentas screaming in the street and creating, flotillas and blocking people with minivans and setting up, chop zones in the middle of intersections with pallets and shopping carts. Those are the nut jobs. If all those people just went home for 3 days, then Joe Rogan wouldn't say they've gone too far.
Right. And certainly we saw, in the beginning of the administration, the left really took out a lot on Elon Musk and the Tesla company. And it sufficiently drove him out of ever seeing politics as a worthwhile endeavor. It does seem that sometimes the protests on the left do have a lot of impact despite the shrillness of it.
Oh, well, listen, at the end of the day, whether it's your home or your city, you just want peace. And you don't really even care who's at fault. You just want everyone to go home and be quiet for 10 minutes. And they've worked this out. I mean, they're smart, they're super loud, and they're super obnoxious. And at a certain point, regular folks start siding with the law abiding people who want the illegals out. They start siding with the other people just because they want some peace in their city. So it works. It works with kids. If you have a kid that throws tantrums all the time and another kid who's mellow, the tantrum kid will get his way a lot.
And at the same time, um, we have a lot of celebrities, right, that will get on the stage and make a big scene, but it doesn't seem to be as effective as it used to be. Or I don't know, we're kind of used to this at the same time. This year it was ICE and the ICE Out movement. Next year, I'm sure it'll be something else. And what's your take? I'm sure you've seen a lot of different protests from celebrities at various award shows. What's your take on this?
Celebrities are constantly running a sort of who's most popular competition in a high school that they never graduate from. It's just a constant, perpetual campaign of who's the most popular. And so you have to kind of think about celebrities. They're interchangeable. They go, Tom Selleck was originally supposed to be Superman or oh God, I think it was supposed to be Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever. And then he dropped out, and then so and so took his place, and nobody knew and nobody cared, and we like this guy better, right? They do
Right.
it all the time. Who's going to play James Bond? Who's going to play the next James Bond? All right. Well, let's just say you're in the running to play the next James Bond, and you start walking around with a MAGA hat on. Well, guess who's out of the running for the next James Bond? You are. Let's just say you go to one of those award shows. Let's say you're in the lead to be the next James Bond. There's three people they're looking at, but you're kind of the odds-on favorite. And then you go up at the Emmys or the Grammys, and you make a speech about law and order and Jesus Christ and Border Patrol's your friend, and these people, we elected Congress, and they put these laws in place, and these men and women are just carrying out. You're gone. You're gone. You're not going to be the next James Bond. I guarantee you that. Every single one of those hypocrites who goes up there knows that. So what they do is they go, what are we talking about this award season? How about we stand with Ukraine? All right, I'll get up there and start talking about Ukraine. I'm not from Ukraine. I don't know anyone from Ukraine. I'm 57 years old, and you've never heard me say the name Ukraine before, but I'm going to get up there and start talking about Ukraine. What do you know about COVID? Nothing. I'll tell you what ivermectin does. How do you know about ivermectin? I know what I need to say because this is a competition and I have to be in the running constantly. And so today it'll be Ice Out, but yesterday it was Me Too, and then there was Black Lives Matter. And I'll just get up there and say whatever everyone else is saying so I don't get thrown out of the competition because everyone's replaceable.
That's so true. And I don't know if you noticed or if you're a frequent reader of Vogue magazine, but I couldn't help but Notice that your governor, Gavin Newsom, is there. The opening line of the article describing Gavin as embarrassingly handsome and at ease with his own eminence. And throughout the piece, it talks about his jazzy politics. So, is this the governor that you've experienced in your state for the past 7 years?
Uh, he's come into this studio years ago, and we had a discussion, and your listeners can find that on the internet. Um, he's a sociopathic buffoon. He's dumb, but he's also totally weirdly sort of disconnected. His ideas don't connect. I'm not speaking, hyperbolically because I hate him and I think he's ruining our state. He is a sociopathic guy. When you talk to him, he doesn't provide answers. He talks in circles. It's all double talk. It's sort of good political talk, except for we're now at a point where a good politician is someone who says nothing for 20 minutes and then does nothing but makes you think something's going to happen. I don't really count that as a good politician. I'd like to have an effective
Right.
politician. He is weirdly broken. I don't know who he is. I don't feel like he knows who he is. Like in a world where you meet people and you go, that guy's a good dude and he's a solid dude. And by the way, I interview a lot of people. And if you interview a guy like Bryan Cranston, you'll go, good dude, funny dude, smart dude, solid dude. I disagree with his politics, but that's a good dude. When
Hmm.
you interview Gavin Newsom, you go, I have no idea who this guy is. Sociopath. I don't think he knows who he is. He's a chameleon. He'll say anything in front of anyone at any time, all the time. His story will change all the time. He's wildly ineffective. He does this aw shucks, grew up on the wrong side of the tracks BS. His family worked with Getty Oil. He grew up a rich kid. He's always been a rich kid. He's a sociopathic jerk who's semi and just makes bad policy that destroyed California. But for some reason, dumb women or or many women, not just the dumb ones, mistake whatever his look and his vibe is for being competent, which is basically like saying, look at Gavin. Who do you want to be the pilot of this airplane? That guy, Gavin Newsom, or that fat guy with the bald spot over there? And I go, well, I want that guy. Yeah, but that guy went to flight school and flew in the Navy. I don't care. I want that guy. That's how we are in California. And that's why we got the place burnt to the ground and never rebuilt because he's an idiot.
And so, do you think he'll have a good chance? Do you think he has what it takes to win the Democratic nomination, or do you think that voters of both parties are going to see right through him?
His once this corruption business starts, and we're just getting started on the corruption. I mean, you can't spend 24 billion on homelessness and have more homelessness without a whole bunch of corruption. So, and then you got his train to nowhere that's billions of dollars over budgets, never going to once people start really delving into the corruption that is California, mix that with the wildfires, mix that with his atrocious record and sleeping around with his ex campaign manager's wife and all that kind of stuff. He's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to play in the middle of the country. This guy, only super leftist dumbos who live in California will buy into this because it's an aesthetic that they're buying into. He's got an abysmal record. Got a 10-cent head. He's good at talking, but he never says anything. And he's going to get exposed.
So I don't know if you're a gambling man, but if you had to guess or if you had to bet who is most likely to win the nomination, would it be Kamala Harris, former presidential nominee, or Gavin Newsom, the person who clearly wants the job?
Well, I think Kamala is a proven loser, and she's also has a 10-cent head. I don't think she's a sociopath like Gavin Newsom, but she doesn't know anything. She has no policy. She flip flops. Everything she says, she then walks back later on. She's an idiot. So, and we got a nice sample of her mentality, which is really low. And I don't think America wants that loser again. I don't think the Democrats want that loser again. So I think you're better off going with somebody that is untested that people don't know rather than I'm basically saying I would rather start a rookie quarterback for my team than a guy who's 0 and 27. Because the 0 and 27 guy, you go, well, that guy's got experience. But yeah, I've seen him play. I'd rather just roll the dice on the guys who never played a down.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm told this Thursday you'll be in Orlando at the Funny House, and later in Naples, Florida on Friday and Saturday. You'll be doing stand-up shows there. And later this month, you're doing shows in Dallas. And of course, you do your podcast on all platforms and now streaming on SiriusXM channel 111. Adam, you're a
Yeah,
very busy man. Thank you for joining us today.
Orlando Funny Bone, I think the place is
Funny
called. By the way,
Bone,
that's Thursday. Yeah,
Thursday.
thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Charlie.
Yeah. All right.